Hello, I'm Mitch Fox, president of the Nevada Broadcasters Association, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Nevada on the Air. It's a program that highlights the leaders and innovators and out-of-the-box thinkers that are shaking things up and making an impact in communities throughout the state of Nevada. I'd like to welcome Chris Way, who's Vice President and General Manager of KTNV Channel 13 to the program. Chris.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mitch. Great to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
You know, this kind of started out a conversation we had over lunch, really, and I thought, you've got to come on the show, tell us all that's going on at Channel 13. Let's start with your background. Your background really focused a lot on digital media and digital content, right?
Sure, it did. You know, although I've been in broadcasting, I'll have to do the math, over about 26, almost 27 years. So before digital media was a thing, started in Oklahoma City. Actually, my first job was weather producing and storm chasing in a great weather market. So, you know, I've been a broadcaster for a long time, but I'll never forget the moment I discovered really the internet and the World Wide Web. I was taking a computer science class at the University of Oklahoma, and someone said, "Hey, check this thing out, this new thing called a web browser." And went, opened it up, jumped on Yahoo. They showed me how to get to Yahoo, and I visited every site that Yahoo listed, and it took me about 20 minutes. So it was super early, but instantly I knew that, from an information perspective, that was, really going to change everything. And I think somehow at that moment I decided that, while I wanted to take advantage and leverage the audience and the, what it means to be a local broadcaster and, a local media source in the community, that digital media is going to have a future. So a couple of jobs later, I ended up getting back in, switch stations and took a digital media job, covered things including the Oklahoma City bombing back in Oklahoma, but just using America Online at the time, doing essentially real-time news updates through a chat room on the front screen of America Online.
You're kind of a pioneer, actually.
Yeah, it was. We call it real-time blogs, or there's other tools that do that today for that live coverage. But essentially, it was the same thing, just play-by-play update of events unfolding after and the events in the days after the Oklahoma City bombing. So. That also, we saw that the reach that we could get was also something that local broadcasters weren't used to outside of their signal being picked up and carried by the networks, which it was, of course, with that event. But for digital media, that was the first time that I participated in anything like that. But anyway, it's obviously developed, and it's come to fruition what we saw early, and today while we are broadcasting at our core, we are really truly multi-platform local media companies, and we try to call ourselves that way because we have to serve people on all platforms. And this is nothing new, right? This is it's the internet, the web's decades old now. So, but we really think about that and how we plan our workflow, the people we hire, all that good stuff.
Your company, Scripps Media, has a terrific website, by the way, and there's a quote on there that says, "We are creating digital media brands that complement and support our successful television and radio stations, but also some that could compete with and disrupt them."
Sure.
There's this whole notion about, does a broadcaster have to have an FCC license anymore?
Sure.
So how do you process all that and bring that in terms of the management and the look and feel of Channel 13, for example?
Well, it truly is, and again, this is not news today, but in any time, anywhere, how you want to consume your media world. And if we're not thinking about disrupting ourselves, then someone else is going to come along and disrupt us. This has happened in many ways, and especially on the business side. You think of what's happened to newspapers. But from the one thing that hasn't been disrupted yet, and who knows if it will, is the news gathering piece. You still have to hire and train and manage and maintain a news staff. The change for them is they have to distribute, know how to distribute on all different platforms. The days where they could just write for broadcast, now they have to write, copy for the web or for mobile platforms. The other way that we're disrupting ourselves and providing options for the consumer. Really now the big move is over the top, which these are apps or channels that you find on these desktop boxes such as Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and then also through the new what's called virtual MVPDs, which are like the alternatives to cable and satellite that have a list of linear, real-time channels, but maybe delivered by Google through YouTube TV, which is not the same as regular YouTube, but YouTube TV, Sling TV, a Sony View, which you get through a PlayStation and some other platforms. So we are putting our content out there, not waiting for newscasts to happen to break news, break stories. So, on and on, the digital media is really taking the lead in a lot of ways.
Now, content is still king in a
Absolutely.
sense, right? So
Sure.
these are distribution channels. So how do you differentiate yourself when these audiences are getting bombarded by so many sources? How do you distinguish Channel 13 both in terms of community engagement and perhaps even news gathering?
Sure. For quite a while, and I've been at Channel 13 coming up on 10 months now, we had focused on a first and fast strategy, which is leveraging our tools and technology to win the breaking news game. Everyone works to win at that. So that's sort of a cost of entry along with weather and traffic, some other basics of what we do across all platforms. But I think there's a change that we need to make in terms of the content we provide, not only in the content itself, but in how we format it and create it. If you look at a sister property of ours in the Scripps family called Newsy, it's geared more towards millennials and the way their workflow is, the way they look at perspectives on the content. Journalism is still really, really important to them, but it's distributed mainly over the top through digital media. Interestingly, though, they're actually getting cable carriage rights and going the reverse route of starting a digital media company and now getting MVPDs. So, it's the content we cover, trying to do maybe less crime, less of the commodity kind of things, focusing on more important issues in the community, kind of like what we used to be about 20 years ago, getting back to our roots, and really trying to focus on what matters to people every single day. It's, I think about what folks are talking about this morning. Was it the 2 shootings overnight, when they're with their coworkers at the water, the proverbial water cooler? Or are they talking about, challenges they're having at their workplace, challenges their kids are having, how the Golden Knights did, what they're doing for spring break? That kind of stuff is probably more relevant and important than any accident, single accident in town.
So you really believe that there's a shift in the way that people want to receive news and also what they want to hear. So they're a little bit more pocketbook. They're talking about education. They're talking about traffic and how it impacts their commute more than the drive-by the night before.
Yeah, for sure. It's in a world where you can get content very specific to what's relevant to you. We have to start talking about stuff that's relevant to the community as a whole, since we're still broadcasting out. There may be a day when we can generate a lot of local content and target people based on their interests, but for now, it's that we report a lot of shootings in parts of town where the people don't even call 911 when a shooting happens. They may wake up and go right back to bed when they hear gunfire in the neighborhood. So, and how relevant that is, it's important. Crime and safety, people are still concerned about that. That's really, really important. But more about that topic. So, I think we'll be reaching out and looking to do more community partnerships, with law enforcement, trying to really solve problems, also on the education side, talk about things instead of covering the superficial things, try to get to the root cause, and really work to make Southern Nevada a better place.
And Contact 13 has been around for forever and a day, right?
Yep.
What's been the response to that?
It's been great. We've got a great partnership with a nonprofit called Call for Action, and they staff a group of volunteers that come in our newsroom, and answer phone calls from people that have issues that need to be solved. A lot of times they will be able to solve that person's issue right with a phone call, or they'll make another call and make a connection and get that resolved without us having to do a story about it. But it really is not only about us covering the news, but it's about us getting involved in the solution. Sometimes it's an individual basis. We try to cover the things that have a larger impact, help a big group of people. But a lot of that things we learn about that need attention come through our Contact 13 and our other sub-brand of that, You Ask Me Investigate.
Looking down the road, I'm going to ask you to put on your visionary glasses, because our business has really undergone a lot of transformation, a lot of metamorphosis over the past even 5 years, right? Yeah. What is the news gathering business going to, or what is the broadcasting business, the local broadcasting business going to look like in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, do you think?
So, I think there was an era when you had 3 local stations in a market, that in almost every single market that did news. And now in many, if not most markets, you have at least 4, sometimes more than that in the big markets. You may see a little bit more consolidation. You may only have, instead of 4, you only have 3 news operations. I think there's still a lot of diversity, kind of back to the way it was, plus, a newspaper and all the different digital media reporting that goes on in the special niche, those focus areas. But it's a challenging time for us, as it is for any media organization, just because there's so many choices of what to do with your time. You may just use your iPhone to get in Apple News to get your latest headlines. You may still wake up with us in the morning and get a beat on the traffic and kind of help you plan your day. You've got games on your smartphone that you may be spending time with that you didn't with before. One of the things that we compete with in the morning we see is actually set-top boxes like Netflix, like parents launching cartoon channels. So that's also a question. It's like kids programming, educational programming that we run on Saturday mornings. How necessary is that anymore with all these choices that kids have for education through digital media sources? So, I think to answer your question, there's going to be a lot more change. We just have to stay really nimble, but core to our mission of serving our local community, that piece will never change. And it's great that, I think when broadcasting was first created and the whole idea of an FCC license, the stations were granted a license in exchange for serving their community. And I hope I believe it's firmly in our DNA enough that it'll never go away, that we'll continue to do that no matter what platform we distribute our content on, whether we have a license or not, which I think it's really important that we do, because we were wireless before wireless was cool, right? So at our core, we will not, that won't change that no matter what the technology happens.
Chris, we're going to leave it there.
All right.
Great conversation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Look forward to seeing the great things that you're doing at Channel 13, what's going on there.
Mitch, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.